'Twas that shite before Christmas, when all through the land deep snow was forecast via every wave band. Those men in sheds set a very brave dare, a Shedventure to Flash, with video to share. You see, the thing about Flash is that it is so high. It's the closest village in England to touching the sky. So they set about plotting a route via Google to provide the best shots for viewers to oogle. Snow all weekend and into next week. That's what the forecasters continued to eke. Those little men in sheds couldn't believe their luck. Snow, free time, and each with a truck. With the Sunday set for their epic travel, the weathermen's promises started to unravel. A scattering of snow by Friday PM, and still nothing falling by Saturday at 10. They awoke on the big day at an ungodly hour to open the curtains and have a good scour, only to find clear roads, not a flake in the air. Where's our fucking snow? They began to despair. Finally the flurry came and began to stick, and they dashed to their rendezvous, quick, quick, quick. Cameras were stuck carefully around each shed, even one on the back of the vehicle that led. With a spring in their step, they did an opening shot, explaining with excitement their infallible plot, and set off they did with intent to play. Well, only once Andrew got out of his driveway. To the Peak District they headed, expecting to find the end of gritted roads and some peace of mind. But even once they got to the bottom of Whiston, clear roads continued with each crank of the piston. With each further mile they began to fear there'd barely be enough to kick out the rear. They climbed until the wind blew a furious gust, digging down deep in their minds' inner trust. It seemed like the gritters had visited every road, ploughing away and leaving their salty load. For now. But those men in sheds didn't give up on their quest, despite that rust-inducing, yellow, flashing road pest. "Bugger off," they cried through their radio nattering, until they finally found a worthwhile smattering. At last, some payoff for all their goodwill. The only problem now, everywhere was downhill. Their journey now was completely mind-bending. How can you go up while only descending? Snow-covered peaks lay waiting ahead, but they found themselves heading into a valley instead. Heading, we say, as if that was easy. This part left Andrew feeling somewhat queasy. He wasn't so much keeping his car out the hedge, more so headed for stone walls while driving a sledge. He steered and braked, he yelled, "Holy shit!" planning escape routes in piles of grit. They got to the bottom and crossed through a ford. It's fair to say neither could say they were bored. Chris had his share when his adrenaline rushed. A passing discovery saw him nearly pushed into the verge on the side of the road. He inched his way back, no need to be towed. They'd found the snow finally, for which they'd applied. Then the rear-facing GoPro gave up and died. Finally some white stuff, thick on the ground. Little did they know, another camera lacked sound. That's why this Shedventure takes the form of a poem. They went into this idea, thinking that'll show 'em. Those men in sheds thought they could be the BBC, with no accounting for actual ability. Now here's the thing with a high-altitude town. You certainly can't get there by only driving down. Since heading into this valley had taken up their time, they now had just one option, and that was to climb. With snow beneath them, they peered to the ridge, a steep ascent before them, just after a bridge. Chris went ahead and quickly found it slippy. It turns out mud terrains don't find snow very grippy. Dibner caught the peril as Chris's progress became slow. Quite the predicament to be in when you're not in 4 low. Andrew took a fair run up, putting inertia on his side, but stopped about halfway up when Chris started to slide. When Chris had conquered this 1 in 6 lane, Andrew faced the prospect of getting going again. This did indeed raise his concern quite a fraction, so he kicked it sideways into the grass to get some traction. The chimney made it to the Jeep, and they sat on the crest, proving that the little champ can cut it with the best. On road tyres too, quite the claim to fame. The tenacious little terrier always ups its game. They carried on quickly to find another hill, a 20% gradient that should give them a thrill. They passed by a man using 2 walking sticks, who seemed to think these drivers were 2 massive dicks. Chris charged the grade first and held on tight. Andrew floored it into third to unleash all his might. There was a point quite scary. The radios went quiet, while engines revved hard in a petrol-burning riot. Chris got to the top and worried about his friend. Did he make the climb, or that perilous bend? A turbo filled the air. He'd only gone and done it. Both sheds stood proudly parked upon that summit. Triumphantly they threw Dibner up into the air to capture footage of this hardy, adventurous pair. Now Flash lay but a little way ahead. Soon they'd finish up this journey and be back home for bed. A piece to the camera was shot at the finish point. Tea and flapjack was snaffled in the cafe joint. Captured upon the webcam of Flash Bar stores, they decided they could perhaps adventure some more. A diversion back formed, just a little back road jaunt. Nothing too scary, nothing that would haunt. They took a turn, and despite it going dark, heading into yet another snowy national park. Was it worth it? Just look at this view. They took this footage and risk to share it with you. See the chimney power sliding as Andrew grabs third. Enjoy it while we soar along like a bird. How about this footage they captured on their way? Quite epic indeed, but what price would they pay? Before we get into this, and you call them cocks, take note of what's ahead, a focus on snow socks. Here's the moment, it all took a dangerous turn. We'll pause this here, so let's watch and learn.
Low range boys hitting the peaks, yo! Nope. Give it out. No. Oh my lord.
Slidey boys!
I am scared right now.
I'm still trying to stop.
That was scary.
It seems they found a stretch of rather thick ice, and never had the sense to stop and think twice. Those men in sheds now had a bit of an ordeal, a hill behind them that neither could wheel. So shamefaced, they had to press further on, into the unknown as the moonlight shone. Walking ahead to check each tricky section, quickly regretting the whole fucking conception. By sheer luck they found a road ahead flat, while snow soaked the tweed in each Failsworth hat. They'd made it back to a road, blessed with some grit, no longer with bad words for those who'd ploughed it. The jeep did then roar, the chimney did whistle, and away they both flew, scattering thistle. And we heard them exclaim, ere they drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, our sheds are all right."